Republic cruiser Spirit of the Republic over Coruscant. Rex, freshly showered, fed, and rested, sat at the desk in his personal quarters. After his meeting with Cody in the mess hall, Rex had taken a walk around the ship to have some private time and think things over. Cody had said a mouthful, and there was plenty in there he needed to wade through and process. He'd found himself staring out the window of one of the upper decks into the blackness of space. They'd come out of hyperspace and ended up in the Coruscant system. They must not currently be needed on another front. Good. Rex didn't know if he could handle another tumultuous situation with such a depleted number of men. They were probably here for that, too. Shinies. With that thought in his head, Rex didn't think he'd be able to properly go through the events of the last few days, so he gave it up. He'd returned to his quarters to clean himself up, as well as get started on and finish his mission report, and fill out and sign off on the death reports for each man in Torrent Company. It was a lengthy process, and a painful one at that. Some of these men had been around since Geonosis, since training on Camino, and now they were gone, and he had to list their number, their name, and, when applicable, how they had been killed. It wasn't work that put Rex in a good headspace. He was just filling out the last one, AR, when he heard the door slide open.
General,
He said, looking up.
I...
It wasn't General Skywalker. It was Ahsoka.
Easy, Rex.
She said, raising a hand when she saw he was about to stand at attention. She walked down the short set of stairs and into Rex's quarters. She glanced around, eyeing up the room. He wasn't sure what she expected. He didn't have much. His desk, stacked with data pads, his freshly cleaned helmet, and a terminal connected to the holonet, sat pretty much in the center of the room. Beside the door there was a set of lockers with his gear stashed in it. Set into the right wall was his captain's bunk. Not much bigger nor comfier than the regulation bunks the other troopers got, but he wasn't complaining. On the left wall there was a door that led to Rex's own personal refresher. That was something he was thankful for. That was about it.
Aren't you supposed to knock?
Rex did his best to give her a smile, but barely managed it.
I sensed your inner turmoil from halfway down the hall.
Ahsoka said, fixing him with those big, blue eyes of hers.
Figured it was safe to come in. What have you been doing?
Rex gestured to the pile of pads on his desk, simultaneously setting the one in his hands next to all the rest.
Finishing the after-action reports, and the, casualty listings.
Ahsoka circled around his desk and leaned down next to him. Her expression was somber.
I'm sorry about your men, Rex. I really am.
Rex sighed and leaned back in his chair, passing one gloved hand over his eyes. At this rate, it was going to become a familiar maneuver.
I know, kid. I know.
It didn't make the loss any easier, but the words were nice to hear.
I visited the men. We talked.
She said.
Played cards.
You what?
Rex looked up at her, dumbstruck. The idea of a Jedi sitting around and playing cards with his boys was enough to give him pause, even if said Jedi was only a kid.
We talked.
Ahsoka reiterated, looking a little nervous at his reaction.
And played cards.
Did they make you bet anything?
Rex needed to know. It sounded like something Addie would do.
No.
Nervousness gone.
It was actually pretty nice. I got to know them a bit better. I just thought it was the least I could do since now I know what their job entails.
Because she knew it was their job to die for her. Rex stared at her, unable to speak for a moment. He doubted she truly understood what that would mean to the men, what it meant to him.
I'm sure they appreciated that.
He said at last, staring at her.
Yeah, Hello? Planet side to Rex? Come in, Rex?
She snapped her fingers in front of his eyes. Apparently he'd been staring too hard.
Sorry.
He said, shaking his head.
It's
been a long couple of days.
Damn it. He wondered when that would come up. He sighed.
How much did you hear?
Most of it.
Ahsoka said, glancing away.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't have been eavesdropping.
It's alright, kid.
Rex said, giving a faint smile.
Just don't make a habit out of it, huh?
No promises.
She smirked. For a moment, she looked as though she was going to reach out to him.
Listen, if you need to talk about anything.
Then the door slid open. They both looked up, caught off guard. 3 clones were standing in the doorway. 2 of them had pristine armor and posture stiffer than plastoid, shinies. The third trooper, the one in the center, had armor marred by a few scars and burn marks that had never quite come out. He was certainly a veteran by now. There were 501st blue stripes down his arms and across his helmet. 2 diagonal stripes streaked downwards from his visor.
Sir. Mum.
Said the one in the center, saluting. The other 2 followed suit.
At ease, trooper.
Rex said, saluting back.
What's your business here?
As if he didn't already know.
Replacements, sir.
The trooper said.
2 platoons worth. According to command, there's more on the way, but we're all you've got for now. The others are waiting for you in the barracks. I see.
Rex stood, sighed. Time to meet all the new faces.
What are your names?
Ahsoka asked. The trooper in the center gestured to himself.
I'm Denal, Mum. This is Red-Eye and Mixer.
It's good to meet you.
Ahsoka said.
Come on, Rex. Let's go meet the boys.
Padawan, Commander, Tano was strange, Denal decided. Good strange, bad strange, he wasn't sure yet. But she wasn't anything like he'd thought she'd be. Then again, he didn't exactly have a metric to measure Jedi against other than what the Kaminoans had told him. And that wasn't much a reference point for anything. He knew that much. One part of that was due to the hours he spent scanning the holonet, and the other part was due to an older Vaude named Wire, who taught him everything he knew about slicing, and finding out things the Kaminoans didn't want him to know. Most of that included casualty reports, different cultures, and access to knowledge that was supposed to be forbidden to him. But there was also the Jedi. Denal had thought of them as aloof, emotionless, and invincible, an opinion that had only been reinforced on Geonosis, where the Jedi had fearlessly led the clones into battle against overwhelming odds, into a slaughterhouse. However, the 14-year-old that walked,
Bounced, more like,
just ahead of him, step for step with his new captain, was a contradiction of everything he thought about the Jedi before now. She was happy, exuberant, friendly, strange. Behind him, he knew Red-Eye and Mixer were thinking along the same lines as him, probably discussing it over a private channel, too. Ahead of him, the captain and commander turned as the door on the left opened, admitting them into the room that Denal knew to be the barracks. He and the other 2 clones followed them inside.
Ah, good of you 2 to make it,
said the voice of the young general. He was standing just beside the door, looking deeper into the barracks where 2 platoons of clones in shiny new armor stood at attention. His arms were folded across his chest and his expression was conflicted, though he couldn't discern what emotions were warring within him.
Sorry, General Skywalker,
Captain Rex said, standing at parade arrest.
We're here now, Sky Guy.
Commander Tano said, her hands on her hips. Denal, Red-Eye, and Mixer stood in the doorway. He kept his posture as stiff as possible. There was no telling just how strict of a general Skywalker was. Better safe than sorry. The general kept his attention on all the new troops lining the barracks. There were so many empty beds. Denal felt his stomach turn. How many men had they lost in their last campaign? Was it his destiny to join the list of names he spied on the memorial on one of the walls within a few weeks of being deployed? What kind of casualty rates did Skywalker have? He'd have to do some slicing later.
Welcome,
General Skywalker said, addressing the new men assembled before him.
to the 501st Legion. As you can see, there are a lot of shoes that need filled. I expect that all of you are up to the task. I'm Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker, your general. This is Clone Captain Rex, your CO. And this is Jedi Padawan Ahsoka Tano, my Padawan learner and second in command. Torrent Company has the reputation of being some of the best men in the Grand Army, as I'm sure you all know. I expect all of you to perform at the level those who came before you did. I'm aware that these are high expectations, but I have the utmost faith in all of you to meet and even exceed them.
Captain Rex stepped forward.
I've served with General Skywalker since the start of the war,
he said.
We haven't known each other very long, but I trust him completely. He is a man that cares about those under his command, and does his best to get everyone home at the end of the day.
Denal looked Rex up and down. He hadn't been familiar with him. At Geonosis, they'd both been serving in different theaters, and Denal wasn't familiar with Rex or his command. The man had a reputation, though, and having a reputation this early in the war was something in and of itself. If Captain Rex gave General Skywalker his seal of approval, that was good enough for Denal. He'd still be doing his research, though.
Sergeants,
Skywalker said.
If you would step forward, please.
Several clones emerged from the crowd, lining up before the Jedi and Captain Rex.
What are your names?
Asked Commander Tano.
Sergeant Cork, Mom.
Said one with marred armor, nodding to the Padawan.
CS-1004, Mom. Kano. CS-2207, Boomer. CT-1119.
Cork nudged him.
Oppo, says, Ma'am.
A few others stepped forward, listing their numbers and names as well. General Skywalker stepped forward.
I want to get to know you. To get to know your men. I want to know what you expect of me as a leader, and I want you to know what I expect from you. I want no miscommunication between us.
Denal was dumbfounded. He'd never heard a Jedi say that before. Skywalker was treating his men like they were actual people. That would take some getting used to. Not that he was complaining, of course.